Hello and welcome to Healing Pathways. My name is Corey Newleaf from Pathway Light by Corey, and it is my goal for this podcast to introduce as many modes, methods, and mediums of spiritual healing as possible to help you along your journey in this incarnation. As a general disclosure, no one on this podcast today is a medical, legal, or financial advisor. Any advice given should not be taken as medical, legal, or financial advice. Today, I have Jessica here to talk about how you can utilize the Akashic Records, aka the Akashics, on your spiritual healing journey. So, welcome in, Jessica. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. I'm super, super, super excited about this conversation. The Akashic Records is something that I feel gets a lot of misconception and misunderstanding within the spiritual community before people actually get a chance to dive into it. So this is something that I felt you might be able to speak on. So what is your history with the Akashic Records? What is your connection?
So I was taught about a year ago now how to access my Akashic records, and I would fair to say that it was a meeting by chance with the person who taught me. But I know now that it was divine alignment, and since being taught how to access my own Akashics, I was also taught how to access other people's Akashic records. How to guide them in is something that I kind of learned along the way and have been mastering my technique at how I guide people in and the things, the possibilities that we can learn, that we can experience, that we can download so that we can go ahead and tackle whether it's past life trauma or current life trauma to heal the things that we so deeply need to heal to be able to live a more purposeful life in walking or trying to walk a path of enlightenment.
I love that. I love that. So I feel like a lot of people think that the Akashic Records, and I say this because me, when I first heard about the Akashic Records, it was introduced to me as basically a timeline of my life, and it'll give me all the answers of everything that would happen in my life, and it would essentially be this giant book of this life and every life that came prior and every life that will come forward. And one of the things that I struggled with was, does that take away willpower? What is the implication of, free will when it comes to the Akashic records? And how do I lose my free will because there's essentially a predestined fortune for me? So I want to clarify, is that really what the Akashics is about? Or because I know you talked about it being about healing and it presents itself. So what really is the Akashics?
That's a great question. I actually struggled with that same thing. And what I have uncovered and learned is that all timelines, time is not linear, right? So past, present, future is all happening simultaneously, which is how all of those things are recorded. It's not to say that you're lacking the free will. It's more so like I personally don't look into the future records because I want to let that happen organically. And I feel if I were to peek into my future records, I'm no longer going to allow that those things to form and happen organically. I'm going to try and control the narrative of what's to come. Whereas looking back, I can learn from the experiences and the things that I have seen, felt, know. But to answer in a more complete way, free will is always going to be there, and we saw our soul, our higher self. And mind you, our soul is in its entirety made up of so many different facets of more than just Jessica or more than just Corey, where that's us honing in on just a few key details of our soul. So there's other facets of our soul that are experiencing other things, which is how we're living multiple lifetimes all in the exact same moment. Um, but our higher self forms this contract. Okay, in this life, I want to experience, or I want my overall goal, lesson learned in this life is to be more compassionate, to be more loving, to be more accepting. So by that contractual agreement, things have to kind of set the stage It's not saying what's going to set the stage. It's going to say that something's going to set the stage to allow for me to learn those lessons. And it may be a contractual agreement with other individuals, other higher selves, other souls to also come into this agreement because they're learning something from this experience as well. And when we understand, and it's convoluted in so many ways, but when we understand that our higher self, because it's so vibrationally high, it no longer has the access to learn and experience lower vibrational feelings. So that's fear, that's sadness, that's anger, anything that is a lower vibrational, we can't feel unless we're in a plane, such as this, the 3D plane, to be able to learn those things and experience those emotions. It's all part of the greater picture.
I love that. And one of the biggest things that I kind of picked up on from that is it's not that the Akashics are detailed record that take away our free will, it's that they are a record of our free will. It's we think of time as happening in the past, present, and the future, but really it's all happening at once and it's being recorded in the Akashics. So when we're going in there, at least from my understanding so far, is that when we're going into our Akashics, it's more about reading events that we've already lived through, events that we have already gone through, and they've just been recorded down for us to be able to reference back to. It's kind of like taking a photo of something so that you don't forget about it. It's that same essence.
Absolutely. And when I go when I go into the Akashics, when I've guided other people into the Akashics, I'm not viewing memories as playing through an entire lifetime. I'm getting little snippets of things that were important in that moment to take a snapshot of. So that's a great metaphor for it.
I love that. I love that. And that actually clarifies a little bit of that dilemma for me personally, because that's a dilemma that I've still battled with myself. So I'm sure a lot of other people have hesitancy of even, attempting to tap into the Akashics with that hesitancy. And that also means then if you were to potentially peek into future Akashics, you're altering that timeline and the book would thus change as well. So tapping into the future isn't something that ethically or morally we should really be doing. Is that what you're saying? And is that kind of really what we should
I feel
be
like
honing in on?
I feel like everyone should use their own discernment on whether or not they choose to do that because people do
Okay.
have the of precognition. Um,
Yes.
and people with the gift of precognition, they have stopped, mass tragedies from happening and different things like that. So I feel like the time and the place is always significant. Have I seen peaks at my future? Absolutely. In past life regressions, I went forward 100 years and I saw that I'm going to be living on a space station. Is it crazy for me to believe that? Sure, but I take it with a grain of salt, knowing that if and when I get to that moment in time, I'll have a deja vu moment, be like, I remember this from seeing it in my past life. So um, I feel like if we're holding so much onto the future moment, we're never actually living in the present moment. So I take it kind of with a grain of salt. Sure, you can get hyper fixated on it, but then are you even living anymore?
And I think that's an excellent point too, because part of this podcast, the whole point of this podcast is to go about healing pathways for this incarnation, right? And when you're so focused on the future and you're so focused on what's going to happen in this upcoming lifetime or in 50 years, you lose your scope of what's actually happening now, which right now should be the healing moment. So the Akashics, up until now, we've kind of defined the Akashics as being a recorded, basically massive information of past lives, current life, future life that we are able to tap into to be able to gain a higher sense of enlightenment. With that being said, do you believe that certain people have soul contracts or their Akashic records are connected in any way? Do you believe that there's connection between people's individual Akashic records, or do you believe that it is individual to each person and they're completely disconnected?
So I feel like there are very many levels and facets to the Akashics that I'm still very much uncovering. I've actually recently gotten a download. So it's really interesting that you asked this question because initially, like what I do, I guide people into their individual Akashics to look. But that's not to say that that's not connected to other aspects of the Akashics. And I've actually recently gotten a download about how there's like an Easter egg. I'll guide someone into their Akashics to find this Easter egg. This Easter egg is going to portal them to a collective space. And then I will do this with multiple people. And collectively, we will all be able to see each other's energetic bodies in this collective space. And we will set a collective intention or ask a collective question. I'm testing it out this weekend, so I'll let you know.
I love that. So it almost sounds to me like we have individual Akashic records, but almost as if they are rooms inside of a larger library that's
Yeah,
all interconnected. So they
ab-
are individual, but they are also not at the same time.
absolutely. And honestly, I feel like it would be more fair to say they are books on a different bookshelf.
Okay. Okay. I like that. I like that
But
analogy.
it is and the sense that I get from this download, I already have my people picked out for my like test group. The sense that I get is that the few, and this will be more for like a collective level, but the few will be able to change the narrative for the many. So the few are going to be able to set the intention for healing, for release, for just not letting the stresses of things that are going on in the world really hone in on people's day-to-day lives when like we don't need to zoom in on those details right now. We need to let it be a broader picture because everything's just chaos, right? And you might even see this in, I've told you before, I feel like it all ties back into astrology too. So
Yeah.
you might see this within like transits and stuff. Things are just chaotic right now, and I'm hearing that the few can change the narrative for the many to help release all of the stuff that is just weighing on people.
Yeah, and I like how you brought up the connection between astrology and the Akashics as well. Because at the beginning, when we were talking about, the dilemma between free will and the Akashic records, we had also brought up the point of having agreements or contracts that we sign ourselves into, whether that be with people or with things. But one of the things that I agree with in astrology, or I believe in astrology, is that we sign a contract going into this life with our natal chart. And that natal chart, based off of that contract, fulfills what we call in astrology a natal promise, right? So when something happens and the astrology kind of matches so perfectly that there really can't be a coincidence between it, that's the connection. That's that planet's natal promise enacting itself. And that leads me to believe that, yeah, absolutely, astrology and the Akashic records are connected because these are potential agreements and contractual agreements that are being recorded in our Akashic records that we're able to tap into and give ourselves a higher understanding of what's going on. So even if you don't know astrology, you can tap into your Akashic records and gain that higher understanding and the perspective that gives you that sense of relief of what may be going on or a sense of understanding. And that's ultimately what the Akashic Records is good for. That's how you can use it for healing, is tapping in to gain that higher sense of understanding and enlightenment of what's going on. What can you potentially learn from the situation that you haven't seen up until now? Or what do you need to potentially let go? All of these things can be found out through the Akashics, at least in my experience. So,
As as you were saying that, I heard the astrologer is the map reader, like for the soul contracts.
ooh, I love that.
I do agree with you wholeheartedly that I've always said that you will understand yourself and you will know yourself through your natal chart, through the stars. We are divine organisms as ruled by the stars. Like we come from the stars.
Yes.
You saying that, like I just see an astrologer reading over a map, and that's literally what you're doing though.
Yes.
Reading the soul contracts.
When I had that realization that your natal chart is your soul contract, that was something that I was like, oh wow, this is why astrology is so healing. But at that same facet, that's also why the Akashic Records can be so healing, because the Akashic Records has the information of astrology, but it also has the information of everything else. It has the information from tarot. It has the information from the other form of astrology that you don't practice. It has the information from the medium down the road that is tapping into the veil in between that can give you that information. The Akashics is interconnected to everything, including astrology. So astrology is just a little glimpse of what the Akashics is capable of. And I love that we've kind of established that connection here in this conversation too.
Absolutely.
Um, so let's talk a little bit about, we've kind of talked about what Akashics is and how it can be used for healing, right? It can give you that higher insight, that higher understanding. I want to talk a little bit about what can the Akashics look like, right? Because a lot of people think it's just a library, or a lot of people have a specific image of what the Akashic record should look like, depending on whether or not they've seen it in a movie or read about it in a book. So can you talk about what does the Akashic records actually look like? What are we picturing here, if we can picture anything?
So everyone is going to picture something completely different. And what I tell people is allow the image to unfold in your mind. What does it look like for you? I very much believe that our higher self is the one that created our specific Akashics, right? Pertaining to this lifetime. So the setting is going to be different for everyone. For instance, mine's a filing cabinet. How much more Capricorn can I get? Like it doesn't get more Capricorn than that. The
Does it at
stability
least have a lock?
it does. Um, the stability, the organization, the just all of it. But so if I were to give anyone an image of what it looks like, think that scene in Bruce Almighty where he opens the filing cabinet. He became God and he opened the filing cabinet. Poof, shoes back. That's what I see.
Yeah.
But so some people have these elegant libraries, everything ordained in gold and just so pristine. And some people have these cottage nooks, and there's like just a whole wall that's nothing but filled with books. Um, Someone else had a cave and they had a glowing orb, and that's how they received the information.
That's very interesting too, because when I've tapped into my Akashic records in the past, whenever I enter, I see myself floating down into this giant dome-looking area. And when I enter into this dome-looking area, there's just one single desk down at the bottom that I sit at. And when I look up into the sky of the dome, I see all kinds of stars and galaxies and universes, and not just our known galaxy, but I see every potential aspect, and it's almost like I'm having to read and understand those stars when I connect to my Akashics and I gain the information from that. So it is different for everybody. I find it very interesting that you have yours in that very Capricorn kind of sense, and mine is very mystical and it's very kind of out of this world. And
But
both
it
of my
very,
big stelliums,
very much speaks to you, Corey.
yes.
That's one of the things. I'm so sorry to cut you off.
No, you're okay.
I lose the train of thought. Um, your Akashics, the setting is going to speak to your life in this lifetime. It's
Yes.
details. clues, different little things for you to pick up on, which I spoke just prior to starting this, but you seeing all of the different constellations from all the different, galaxies just screams like, Corey, this is absolutely what you're meant to do in this lifetime. Absolutely 1000%. And you're going to have major breakthroughs that have been discovered in other centuries and by other astrologers, astronomers, all of the things that have tracked the constellations, but you're going to be doing so, I feel like, in this lifetime. What that's going to be, I don't know. And I hope that I'm around to see it because
I truly hope so. I really hope so. I hope that I'm part of a larger cog in this spiritual machine. But I mean that's for me to find out, and that's for me to kind of learn with my Akashics as I go. And I think kind of where I was going with that was, and I think you picked up on it in what you said, was one of my biggest stelliums in my chart are Scorpio and Aquarius. And Aquarius is the alien. It's the one that's out of this world and comes down here to imbue its information. It's kind of standoffish, it's unique, it's very innovative. And Scorpio is the deep, mystical, kind of obsessive one. And I think when I look at my Akashic records, that's a perfect representation of all of that energy. So for me, my Akashic Records is a very good painting of what my natal chart actually would look like if I had to visualize it. So I find it very interesting that now we found yet another connection between astrology and the Akashics and how it really displays itself to people.
absolutely, absolutely.
It's very interesting. So obviously, aside from going and meeting someone who can help you get into the Akashic records, how can people start to kind of introduce themselves to their Akashic records? Is there any sort of thing that they can do at home to kind of at least get themselves into the foot of their Akashic records just so that they can get a glimpse or some sort of general understanding?
Absolutely. So, before I like dive into that, I just want to preface by saying before I dived into this, you had touched on it also. Hearing about the Akashic records, like it's this mystical thing and often gate kept. When I first started in on this journey, I would hear about the Akashic records. I'm like, oh, I want to know what my purpose is. Let me see if I can find, get a reading or something. I'd find a website, I'd find a reader, and one question, $300. Like, not even like a face to face, just like, and
Jeez.
I was at a loss. So for a long time, I kind of it just sat in the back of my mind. Um, and I never really found many ways. I did hear one speaker talk about you can like basically get ordained in and you learn this pathway prayer, but it's super private and super gate kept and this and that. First off, no, it's not. Some cultures do highly gatekeep it, and that's fine. Um, you can find if you are an average person and you want to dive into the Akashics and you'd prefer to do it on your own and you feel like you're capable, um, first, I'm always going to recommend um, doing your due diligence in your research. There's many credible sources out there that you can utilize. ChatGPT being a free and amazing one, it will provide you different answers, different outlooks. It'll provide you a pathway prayer. If you want to use or feel more comfortable using a pathway prayer, it's basically your intentions. I'd say meditation. I'm not a meditation girly, but for those of you that are, meditation, specifically, you're going to want to do meditations for the eighth chakra because something that I learned a few months ago is that our Akashic records are housed in our eighth chakra, the soul star chakra. And that is the access point in which to get to it. Now, the frequency for the soul star chakra is 272.2. And I have given that frequency to people to find a frequency, listen to it prior to meeting with me, especially for those who are or have not had the opportunity to develop in learning how to channel, because it's a little bit more difficult to get and maintain a connection with the Akashic Records if you are not familiar with raising your vibrations intentionally. Listen to that frequency and just allow whatever is coming to you to come to you. Don't hold an expectation on what you're gonna see, what you have to see, that it's right, that it's wrong. Just allow it to flow and allow it to be. What you see is what you see. Take note of it. You don't have to put any significance on it. But if you know in your knowing that you saw something or that you felt something or that you feel like you were there, then be firm in that and explore it. And every single time after that, like, it does not have to be um I'm a firm believer that you don't have to spend money to heal. So, like, you don't have to come to me to go to your Akashics. You don't have to go to the next person to go to your Akashics. I will give someone every free resource that I know of to help you achieve the exact same thing, because at the end of the day, the healing is what matters. The healing and the releasing of what no longer serves you is the greatest goal.
Yeah. And I want to re-emphasize that again. I want to just bring up a little bit of like an ethics and morals piece, right? Um, because as much as the Akashics can give you information about this current life, right? If you're going into the Akashics to figure out if your boyfriend is cheating on you,
Absolutely not.
right? Absolutely not. No.
Absolutely.
The Akashics is something you do to understand your highest self. And that's why you should be using the Akashics. The Akashics is for you to understand your journey and understand your highest vibrational self along this journey. And I just wanted to bring that piece up because I feel like there are some people out there who might initially hear this and go, oh my God, yeah, absolutely. Now I can figure out all the information that I need to know about my man's best friend. Like, this is not what that is used for, and you will not get anywhere.
Uh, and I will piggyback off of that. If you don't know how protected somebody is in the spiritual realm, if you don't know how much weight they hold, I promise you, you do not want to do that. Everybody has an Akashic Records guide. Some people are heavily, heavily, heavily protected, and tread lightly. Like, I preach ethics and morals when entering into your Akashics. There are some gray areas, and by gray areas, I mean my daughter in this lifetime. I can ask if we shared other lifetimes. I can't get information of what she did in all of her lifetimes, but I can know that we, you know, had other lifetimes together and who she was to me in that lifetime. But I can't just go searching down her life without her consent. Her guides will put a stop to it real fast.
Right.
If you don't heed those warnings, you just want to heed those warnings.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the best way to put that. And I think the biggest emphasis on that is your Akashic records are your Akashic records, right? We discussed them being part of a grand connectedness, and while that may be true, there is still a
Yes.
secure, distinguish between them. So you can tap into your Akashics to understand your life and understand your path and understand and connect to your higher enlightened self. But what you can't then do is try and tap into somebody else's Akashics non-consensually, right? This is a good segue into the next thing. How do you feel about some of the more kind of out there things when it comes to the Akashic records, right? So there's some practices where people will attempt to identify soul contracts by entering a contract or entering their Akashic records together. Some people will attempt to connect with like the Earth's energy to try and tap into the Earth's uh, Akashic record. And how do we necessarily get consent there? Do we need to get consent when we're tapping into celestial bodies? So how do you feel about some of these more out of the ordinary views of the Akashic Records, which is already an out of the ordinary kind of practice as it is?
So I think that with everything there comes duality, right? So now if it's two consenting adults that both want to go into their Akashics and see what they can learn together about their individual soul contract, you have both consenting parties. And I feel like if they receive an answer, that's another thing. You're not going to receive an answer on something if you're not meant to receive an answer.
Okay.
No, forcing something will make it happen. If you're not meant to know, you will not know
Right.
because it will inhibit something that is meant to happen. And if something is meant to happen, and that's not saying that Joe Schmo is meant to get into a car accident. It means that Joe Schmo is just not meant to have foresight on something that's coming. Like because it could um in inorganically change his free will, right?
Right. Yeah.
Going back to what we talked about. As far as tapping into celestial bodies of energy, um, I feel like we are anchored here. Our lowest chakra points anchor us here into Gaia. And I, as long as this is where my ethics and morals are, as long as you are doing things with in the highest of good, like in love, right? If you're wanting to connect to Gaia for the purposes of love and healing and raising vibrations and doing good, is can still tread a very fine line because people can do things claiming they're doing it out of love. But this is where discernment comes in. You'll know if you're not supposed to do something. You'll know if
Yeah.
you're not connected to it. You'll know. I personally don't do things unless I know beyond a shadow of a doubt. And I think that's my Capricorn speaking. Because I gotta know beyond every explainable knowing. I have to know. And then I have
Yeah.
to know more that this is what's meant for me. And then I'll proceed. The possibilities are really limitless. Like I have called it upon Metatron. So I'm like, yo, Metatron, I want to know more. I want to know more.
Yeah.
Um, and I do feel like he's guiding me, but it's still one of those that I'm like, ugh, am I supposed to be doing this? Do I have the right to do this? Can I do this? I think it's really all where your intentions are, where your practice are, where are you doing it for the highest and greatest good, or do you have nefarious intentions at play?
And I think, especially when you're tapping into these celestial bodies or these higher energies as it is, those bodies, those celestial energies will know, right? Regardless of how good of an actor, how good of an image you can present yourself, those
Survive.
celestial energies will see right
Yep,
through that. And it brings us right back to you will not get information you are not meant to receive. So you can attempt to tap into these things, but truly, genuinely, unless you are approaching it from an angle that is of a higher vibration and is also of an intent that that being, whatever it may be, is in alignment with,
absolutely.
then maybe you can access the energy if they decide to. And again, it goes down to what are you meant to and what do you have permission to access at that point, and you cannot attempt to force anything.
Absolutely.
Nothing in the Akashic should ever be forced. And if it feels forced, you need to back out.
I and I literally tell people that when I'm guiding them because you're going to be tapped into all your clairs that you utilize here in the physical reality, right? So if there's something that's saying like, "Hey, I don't feel like I should go that way," all right, back out immediately because you're not meant to. And knowing and honing in on your discernment and your intuition and knowing these things in the physical is also going to aid you in the spiritual, in the Akashics, in whatever realm you want to enter. And I know for me personally, I approach everything with pure intentions. So what I say is what I mean, and what I mean is what I say. And so I've never had an issue
Yeah,
because I approach everything with pure intentions. But that's not to say that if you were to try and tap into my Akashics without me knowing, that you wouldn't get the boot and like car breakdown next week, lose your house the week after. You know what I'm saying? Like things would play out for however they play out.
right.
Get the day that you deserve at that point.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's then a good segue kind of into asking, what would you say to some of the people that believe that the Akashic records are just BS? I mean, this is something that I like to go over during all of my episodes that have spiritual things, and that's all of my episodes, right? I like to go over some objections, right? So, what would you say to somebody if they came up to you and they just told you you were essentially delusional for attempting to tap into the Akashic records? What would be kind of your response to that?
Okay. And like not to be like an a-hole, right? Um, but just because I know what I know. I know what I see, I know what I experience. So someone else's bearing, their opinion has no hold on what I know that I've experienced and what I've done and how I've guided other people, the healing that I've brought people. And I think people struggle to believe in something that they can't see, that they can't touch, that they can't with their physical senses. Because again, all of these are experienced through our extrasensory perceptions, right? Our clairvoyant, clear cognizance, clear sentience. It's experienced through all of these things, which while it shouldn't be more far out there, it is
Yeah,
first. And that's okay. That's just meeting them where they're at. And it would deplete my energy to argue with someone who doesn't believe. Now, if they were to give me the time of day and I go in, I do a reading for them, they'd be like, whoa, how do you know that?
yeah. Yeah. And the other thing that I bring up and has come up on past episodes is even if it is complete BS, right? And I don't believe that it is. For the record, I don't believe that this is bullshit. I think that this is all genuine. I think this is all information and realms that we can tap into. But for the non-believers out there, if it is not harming you, and it is not bringing any sense of harm physically, financially, mentally, anything of that nature, if it's not causing paranoia, if it's not causing you to detach entirely from reality, why does it hurt, right? What is the hesitation in at least attempting it and seeing it? What is the hesitation in potentially using it as a way of becoming a better person? And this is where the placebo effect comes in, and I've talked about this again on a few of my episodes past, right? The placebo effect is very powerful. The placebo effect allows the body to heal itself. Our brain can do miraculous things. It's the reason why a mother can lift a 2-ton car off of her baby in the middle of distress. She's not worried about anything else except lifting that car off of her child. So all of these miraculous things are things that we should not sit here and be questioning the validity of because they exist, but instead we should be questioning our hesitation to use them for personal growth. So that would be kind of my standpoint on that, and that's where I will stand on pretty much all spiritual practices, as long as they don't bring harm to you or others in a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, any sense whatsoever. Financially, why not allow people to use it, and why not attempt to even use it yourself if it makes you a higher vibrational version of yourself that you would prefer to see?
Absolutely. I agree with that.
So, all right. I don't really have anything else that I wanted to ask about the Akashics. I feel like we did a pretty good introduction to the Akashics and what they are, how you can kind of access them, how you can use them for healing, and some of the different, objections and things of that nature. Did you have anything additional that you wanted to add on? Any other comments, questions, or concerns regarding the Akashic Records that you wanted people to know?
I do want to mention that one of the things that I have learned in the recent few months, again, I'm learning all the time. I am a student of life forever. Um, is that you can actually call forth your loved ones that have transitioned in the Akashic Records, again, leading to more healing because oftentimes, like, these are pieces of us that have, it feels like it's been ripped away from us, right? The grief, the process of grief. Um, the Akashic Records, when you're into your own, it's not something that I do through a reading. It's when you've gained access to your own, you can call forth your loved ones in there. You can meet your guides in there. Um, I specifically use my Akashic Records all the time. If I feel like my intuition is picking up on something, like I instantly go to my records, get confirmation. It's so seamless that it's in everything that I do. And I don't I'm right there with you. Do no harm. I fully live by that. Like I do no harm to none. Because if I'm doing harm, then I'm inadvertently, that's something else that we need to go back and fix, right? Like
Yeah.
why am I going to put negativity or harm out there to anyone? But the Akashics, I have guided someone in, and they called forth their loved one who, like, they just felt it really heavy, and I felt it really heavy to suggest it. They called forth their loved one and was able to feel their embrace. I was able to see the whole thing because I remote view it as I guide people in. And just the healing that took place that day, like these sessions, they stayed with me. Like they
Yeah.
touched like the deepest parts of my heart. It's I'm all about healing right along with you because healing is hard. It's never easy, but it's always worth it. And I feel like the more that we remain open-minded to the possibilities, not limiting ourselves in any way, shape, or form, the faster, the easier, and the more deeper our success with healing happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's part of the reason why I created this podcast is because there's so many people out there that don't know where to start. Where do I go? How do I start on this healing journey? I'm just left with all of this pain. And where do I go? And, this is, I think, episode number 4. So far we've had four avenues now where you can now go to. And the Akashic Records is some place that it is extremely powerful and beneficial for you to gain an understanding of your journey and your lifetime. So, with that being said, Jessica, where can people find you?
I'm on pretty much all social platforms as just next level or at just next level, but I also have a beacons that I can provide you with. I don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay. Yeah, so go ahead and check the description if you are looking for Jessica's information. It'll be down in the description of this video and of this podcast, so you'll be able to connect with her through there. And she can potentially get you into your Akashics if you are not able to do it yourself, or if you don't have somebody near you, or if you're just looking for somebody reputable. Jessica is definitely somebody that can help get you into your Akashics and at least help get you through that door if you don't know how to do it yourself. And as always, you can always find me at pathwaylight by Corey.com and across all social media platforms at pathwaylight by Corey. This has been a very, very, very fantastic episode. I want to thank you, Jessica, for coming on. I truly, truly, truly appreciate it. Your information is invaluable, and I truly hope that you had a great time talking about the Akashics and everything that you love to do on a regular basis.
And I love to talk about the Akashics. I
Yeah.
love it.
It's really good. All right. So until next time, y'all, have a fantastic day, week, evening, month, year, however it is, long life, however long it is. I hope you have a fantastic one. Have a great day, y'all.